Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure. My name is John Simmons. I work for the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, and we're here in opposition to 8123. And we have a variety of reasons why we're in opposition. We have provided written testimony, and I'll go to one of the pages in it in a few minutes just to highlight one of our analysis that we did. But the question we would agree with the mayor and others is that there is a need for a much better, effective water policy throughout Rhode Island. There is no question that Providence Water has 60% of the customers in the state. The other 40 is mixed with a variety of others. About 5 or 6 other water supply boards are regulated by the PUC as well as the Providence Water. They are the ones who buy wholesale from the Providence Water system. They buy it wholesale. Their regulated add-on is done by the PUC. It is their internal cost. So there's not a profit motive or profit taken because they are regulated much like the Providence Water supply system. So we believe that that should occur. It has been something we've talked about. There's also a rationale to go for wastewater facilities, the Bay Commission, et cetera. There may be some economies between either of the two processes. We believe there's not a lot of probably economies. If you believe 60% for the water Providence system, the efficiencies that you're large, it may be for the other water systems and not necessarily Providence that may be more efficient, but we need to look at that. Our concern, however, is when you look at the broader picture of it, you say, why do you take out the PUC out of the transaction? We don't understand that nature. It makes no difference whether it's owned by the city or owned by anyone else. What the Water Supply Board system is a regulated entity. They can go to the PUC and seek this type of action. Matter of fact, probably the PUC would like to have this type of action occur, where there's economies and efficiencies so the pricing could be reduced for the individual. So we can go to Cumberland, or you can take there are areas in Kent County and others that are dry of water, where there's a surplus. Woonsocket and other states or other towns have excess water capacity, as Providence does. Why are we not looking at this in its entirety? But why not under the PUC direction? So we believe that that should be under their direction. We don't know why it is necessary not to have the PUC approve of the transaction itself. We don't understand why the PUC would not have any ability to look at that transaction or the results of it for 5 years. We just don't understand why you would not want the PUC to be involved in this regulation, since they've been doing it for years now. They've done it in other utilities when there's mergers. The National Grid, I guess, was one could look at over time. It's a regulated industry. They're capable of handling mergers and transactions. And again, the definition of transaction in the bill is relatively loose. It doesn't say that it can't be a sale or merger or anything else. It says a transaction. So it's a very loose definition. And why would you want to take away the ratepayer protection by the PUC? Why would you not allow the PUC to review the actual transaction? And what that means is for the life of the Water Supply Board and this transaction, the PUC is not able to look at the transaction, period. It cannot do anything. If the transaction has commitments in it, according to a reading that we have, is the PUC can't undo them, it can't look at them, it can't effectuate the rate. So we want to look at this. Now the testimony says that we are trying to get better rates and we are only capping the rates at some amount. If you go to page 3 or page 2 of the testimony, we went back and looked at the Providence Water Supply Board rates over the last 5 years. And if you read the statute, it says in its totality over the 5-year period. One looks at the Providence Water Supply Board increase has been 36, almost 37% increase over that 5-year period. So they can have, year one, a 37% increase in the water rates. That's contemplated under this. We all say it won't happen, but the statute, as we read it, says they can have a 37% rate increase. If you go down a little further on the chart, you'll see it's on the transaction. Does that mean if they combine with the Narragansett Bay Commission, that 37% is on the revenue for the Water Supply Board, which is around $60-some-odd million? Is it on the $96 million for the Narragansett Bay Commission? We think if you go to the outer large of this thing, and this is my very Machiavellian approach of looking at things, you're talking about an 87% increase, $87 million increase in the rates, as we believe is affordable under this statute. And that's what you would be approving, because the PUC cannot look at those rates for 5 years and cannot undo the transaction. So we do not understand why that is occurring. We believe that you should go back to the basics, take a look at the efficiency and effectiveness. If ownership is the issue, then that ought to be addressed directly. I happen to believe, all that I've ever seen and read, Providence probably does own the water system. Matter of fact, there was a bill passed by the legislation a couple of years ago allowing a 5% rate of return for Providence, except you couldn't take it from the rates. So there was no bill. It's in a sense. So that is a separate and distinct issue. It has nothing to really to do with this. Also, the usage of this funding that somehow is going to be used to enhance Providence. One would argue, why do the people in Cranston and elsewhere have to provide funding to the city of Providence to meet its pension obligation or to infrastructure improvements? Why is that necessary? We don't understand the rationale for that. So with in mind, Mr. Chairman, I think I'll end quicker than you probably would. No, well, I should say a lot of that I wanted to take, but thank you very, very much, Mr. Chairman.